Hello designers, in this video I want to teach you the pop-up basics of the pop-up builder that is built right into Elementor version 2.4. Of course, this is available with the Pro version of Elementor, so you need to have the Pro version. And let's get into it and see what Elementor pop-up builder has to offer. Starting with Elementor 2.4, Elementor has separated its templates from the usual Elementor menu. So now you have templates separately, and the Elementor screen now has settings, custom fonts and other links, and now you separately have a section for templates. So you need to go to templates. You can also go to pop-ups, or you can simply click on save templates, theme builders, pop-ups or anything, or you can directly click on add new. So once you click on add new, it gives you a drop down menu from which you can select pop-up. Let me name it my first pop-up and let me click on create template, and Elementor gives me these templates to start with. Well, pop-up builder interface is similar to that of any other section, column or a page that you're creating with Elementor, except that you have pop-ups instead of pages. Well, that's quite logical. And you also have your blocks that are available in other templates, so you can insert blocks into your pop-ups, and also you can include or insert your own templates that you designed using Elementor. So let's settle with pop-ups, and you can preview any one pop-up that you want and see how it looks. So this is how it looks. So if you're happy with it, you can insert it or you can go back to the library. What happens when you close this? Well, nothing. You get this usual pop-up screen, and if you want to use a template, you can simply click on this again and you can insert it. You get all that back, similar to how you work with other templates or the theme builder elements. Before we even start designing something, you can tweak the settings of pop-up. So you can click this cog icon and it opens up settings, style and advanced, under which you can tweak various properties of the pop-up. So if you want to adjust the width of it using pixels, so you can specify that, or if you want to adjust it using the vertical width, specify that too. So this vertical width is highly useful for mobile devices. And height, you can decide whether to fit to the content, which is the place where this pop-up opens, or fit to the screen so that it fits the entire screen. So maybe for a login form or something, you can use fit to screen, but for a simple mailing list sign up form, you can simply use fit to content. And of course you can specify your custom height if those two don't fit your needs. And you can tweak the horizontal position of the pop-up. It's ideally at the center. That's how people do it, but you can place it anywhere you want. And also the vertical position of the pop-up. Overlay, we can show the overlay or you can hide it. Overlay is basically the place around your pop-up that covers your entire screen so that your pop-up is highlighted. You can actually show it or hide it. Also, you can also show or close the close button. And of course you can add an entrance animation. So if I think fade animations are more subtle, so you can maybe pick one of them. So you can fade in from right or maybe fade in from top. So just like that, if the pop-up appears, it's more subtle, and you can increase the animation duration to see how that looks. So that's very subtle, and you can make it as published, private or anything else. You can of course see how your pop-up looks on various pages. So pick one of them and click on preview, apply in preview, and it will take you and it will show you how that pop-up looks on this particular pages or that particular categories. So that's preview settings. Style, you can change the pop-up background. Maybe you can add a color. So maybe blue. If you don't want it, just clear it. Also the border radius, can maybe have a border radius with a dotted border, and the color may be this one. So if you want to have a pop-up like that, and also tweak the border radius to make it a bit more rounded. And then you can also tweak the overlay. So if you want a yellow overlay for some reason, I don't know, usually black looks good, and a light color of black actually looks good. You can also add an image. If it's a full screen pop-up, you can add an image to the overlay. And of course you can position your close button wherever you want and tweak it according to your pop-ups setting. So you can put it wherever you want. You can also put it outside the pop-up, adjust the color of its size and all that stuff. And under advanced, you can automatically show the close button after a few seconds. So initially when the pop-up loads, this won't be visible, so you can show it after some particular time. And you can also auto close your pop-up, which is not recommended because pop-ups are usually used to get leads or give users various offers, so you generally don't want to use this one. You can also prevent closing on overlay, so if a user clicks on overlay, the pop-up won't be closed. So you can also disable prevent closing on escape key. So when you enable this, even when the user presses escape, this pop-up won't be gone. Escape key is like the universal close everything key. So you can also disable page scrolling, multiple pop-ups. If you have a lot of pop-ups on the same page, you can disable this one. So if there's another pop-up, you can disable showing this one. And margin and padding, CSS classes and custom CSS. That's a brief overview of what the pop-up can do or how the pop-up can be placed. Now let's get into the design part of the pop-up. So coming to the design part, you can either start with the template at the beginning itself, or you can also start designing your own pop-ups. And of course, you can change these settings before even creating anything, or you can first start with something and then tweak those pop-up display, CSS and all that stuff. So, and there's one more thing that I noticed. When you remove a template that you imported, sometimes the background is left out. Don't panic. If you see a weird background, let me show it with an example. So let's say I inserted this template into my pop-up box. I get this background and this stuff. So when I actually remove this, I still have my background showing here. It's maybe a bug, but you can fix it quite easily. Just click on the settings cog again, go to style and just delete the image. Then you get your usual pop-up screen. Happens when I import a template from the pop-up screen. When I import a template, not just the background, but also the properties of the template are imported. So if I import a template that's placed onto the right of the screen, even my pop-up is moved to the right of the screen. So if I import a template which is placed at the center of the screen, even my pop-up settings are adjusted according to the properties of the template. So let's say I'm going to import this teddy template. As you can see, when I imported this template, the pop-up is moved onto the bottom left of the screen because that's what we saw in the template. And you can also verify that by clicking on the settings cog again. You can see the horizontal position is onto the left and the vertical onto the bottom, meaning it's placed on the bottom left place of my website. And of course, the overlay and everything else is also imported along with the animation if you have any. So you can also change the animation. You can also change the width and all that stuff. So this is what happens when you import templates to work with pop-ups. So let me close this one and let me import a template which is placed at the center of the screen. So let's see what happens now. As you can see, my pop-up is placed at the center of the screen and the width is adjusted accordingly. So you can tweak the width a bit. So the image is also adjusted according to the width that you want. And position, maybe you can position it wherever you want. So it's exactly at the center of the website. Click on the settings cog again and change the various settings. So that's pretty much it when you import a template to work on a pop-up. And again, my background is left out when I deleted that. Don't panic. Click on the cog, go to style and delete the image. And I'm still left with the properties of the previous template. So you may have to tweak it all by yourself. So the vertical height and everything is adjusted accordingly. So you can change it to fit to content. So then you get your usual normal pop-up. So that's how you start working with templates. And the really great feature about pop-ups is that pop-ups are basically Elementor templates in disguise. So you're basically designing Elementor templates but with some specific conditions. So you can drag your each and every widget that you have for Elementors and even third-party widgets. If you actually trust your third-party widget, you can also drag them. So you can add your HTML, maybe your image gallery, ratings and all that stuff. You can also import your form. You can also add your form widget into that, which is what usually pop-ups are used for. So you can place your form, tweak it and do all the normal Elementor stuff that you would do with any Elementor template. For the sake of simplicity, let me just import a template and settle with it. And I'll show you how to add conditions and all that stuff. So I just selected this and clicked on insert. So that pop-up is inserted for me. So this is how my pop-up would look like if it's published. So once you finish designing your pop-up, you can then go to your settings and preview it on any other page before even publishing it, or click here and view conditions, triggers and advanced tools. These are basically the features that add so much power to your pop-up. Otherwise it would generally be a regular Elementor design, but these features make it a powerful tool, marketing tool. Of course, you can also click on publish and they'll be brought to you automatically, or you can simply click on this right arrow and bring all those. So either way you can get it. Conditions, just like your theme builder, you can specify where you want this pop-up to appear. So you can say maybe you want this pop-up only on the front page, which is your home page. So you can add it. And if you don't want to add this pop-up, you simply want to save it as a template, you can do it. Just save and close, or you can also click here and click on save as template. So this will be saved as a pop-up template. So next time when you start designing, you can start with this design that you worked on. Let me click on publish again. Triggers, these are really important. And on page load, it means whenever the page loads, this pop-up will be loaded based on the design and the rules that you set. So when you click on page load, whenever your page finishes loading all the elements, your pop-up will be shown. On scroll, you can specify after how much distance you want this pop-up to appear. So let's say you have a large article, and if user reaches almost 90% of the length of the page or the height of the page, so when he reaches 90%, you want to show him maybe a related article that will actually make him click and read something else instead of him leaving your website. So you can do that on scroll to element. I'll show you this. And you know what we do on design school? You can give a name here. So you can maybe give it any unique name and you can put that in Elementor design. I'll show you this in a bit. On click, so when the user clicks, this will be activated. So let's say when your user is clicking on some templates or basically some designs, you can show him this pop-up. And if your user is inactive, you can specify a time on exit intent when he's trying to leave your website by reaching the top portion of the browser. That's when you can show the pop-up. So that's what these are. Advanced rules after X page views, meaning if he views X different URLs or if X different number of pages. By pages, it means pages, posts, custom post steps, anything on your website is basically a page. That's how Google views it. Sessions is when user enters your website and leaves your website. So that's one session. Or it can be when he logs in and logs out. The time between logging in and the logging out is called session time. And you can show him as many times as you want, so that you don't freak him out by showing him a lot of times. And this is when he comes from a particular URL, and you can also choose if he's coming from this particular things such as search engines or Facebook groups. You can show him this pop-up, and you can of course hide it for your logged in user. And also you can specify which devices you want this pop-up to appear. So if you don't want it on mobile, you can remove it. If you just want it on desktop, you can put it, and tablet you can put it, and you can click on save. So your pop-up will be saved. And apart from the triggers that you have here, there are also few other triggers that you can use with these pop-ups. I'll show you that in a bit. So let's see how our pop-up works in action. So I'll add a condition to show this across the entire website. I'll click on next, and the first one I'll click on page load. So you can specify the time after which the pop-up should be shown after the page finishes loading. So if you want it immediately, just leave it 0, or if you want it after a second the page loads, you can do it. So once you select that, click on next and click on save and close, and it takes some time for loading. And here I have my home page, so I just want to view it. I'll just go to my website. So when a user enters my website, according to the specified condition, this pop-up should appear after 1 second the page loads, and you can see how the pop-up appears. Now let's change the condition from page load to on scroll, and let's say when he reaches scrolling 70% or 75% of the page, I'll click on save and close again. I'll refresh this page and I'll see what happens. Since my condition for this pop-up is across the entire site, and when the scroll distance reaches 75% of its actual length, the pop-up doesn't load. So watch what happens when I try scrolling, and when I reach 75% of the length, the pop-up appears. You can close it. Of course, I am logged into my admin dashboard, which is why it's a bit screwed up. Otherwise it would properly be shown, so don't worry. And let me show you the other conditions. I'll click on this, click on triggers again. I'll remove this trigger, and I'll say on scroll to element. Now if you follow this channel closely, we know how to use the CSS classes a lot. In fact, we've been using it a lot to build our own widgets or add custom functionality to our Elementor widgets. So just give it a class name here, and under conditions, just paste the name of the element, but before that you need to add a dot. So dot followed by the name of your class. So if you add pop-up trigger here, it should be dot pop-up trigger, and click on yes and click on save and close, and that will basically show the pop-up when you scroll to that particular element or that particular class. So I'll remove this. Next thing is on click. So when the user clicks on it, so let's say if user clicks thrice on the page, I want to show the pop-up. Click on this one. I'll refresh this one. which is my home page, because I've changed the trigger to clicks. So when I scroll, the pop-up is not shown. When the page loads, the pop-up is not shown. And I clicked thrice, and just like that, my pop-up appeared, because that's the trigger I specified here under triggers. That's what it means. I'll remove this trigger now after inactivity on page exit instant. So if he's trying to leave your website, the pop-up will be triggered. That's pretty self-explanatory. Just turn this on and then save and close. Don't worry. Of course, you can add multiple triggers. So you can say after inactivity or on page exit intent, and also this one. So even when one of these conditions is met, the pop-up will be triggered. The advanced rules, they're pretty self-explanatory. So that's how your pop-ups appear based on how you specify that. So once you finish designing your pop-up, you just go to the conditions tab and specify where the pop-up should be shown. Then you add a trigger, which is how or when the pop-up should appear, and advanced rules. On top of triggers, you can also put some conditions. So even when the trigger is met, it won't be shown to logged in users. So it will override the triggers here. So you can add your triggers normally and then override those with some conditions out here. And there are a couple of other ways to trigger pop-ups as well. And in fact, not just triggering pop-ups, you can also toggle. So you can make any link trigger a pop-up. By link, it can be any text widget or anything that has a link in it. It's generally text widget and the button widget. So whichever has a link field to it under content can actually trigger a pop-up. So in my home page, I have a button called Succeed Today. I'll just click on Dynamic, and then there's a feature called Pop-up. I need to click on it again, and then I can say Open Pop-up, and then I need to type the name of my pop-up, which is first pop-up. So there it is. I'll select it, and yeah, I'm all good to go. I'll click on Update. So I can refresh this page again, which is my home page. And now the proper trigger will be the button itself. So I can remove all other triggers. So on page exit, I can close this. I can save this and close. So I can click on this button, and just like that my pop-up appears, because I gave the trigger here using the dynamic link option. You can also close the pop-up using this. So not just opening it, you can also close the pop-up, and you can also toggle pop-up. So let's say you can have a button to open the pop-up, and you can have a button to close the pop-up, or a single button to open and close pop-ups. So you can also toggle between the pop-ups using this setting. So whichever has a link field, which is basically your text widget and your button widget. And I don't remember any other thing having a link. Let's see if anything else has a link. I think those are the fields that have a link to them, or maybe the icon box as well. So let's see if that's the case. Yeah, even icon box has a link. So even an icon box can trigger a pop-up. So for some reason, if you explain the features of your widgets or your product, you can also make the user trigger a pop-up by clicking on the icon box. So you can also add a condition here, similar to how you add with anything. So wherever there's a link field in content tab, even that can trigger a pop-up. It can open a pop-up, close a pop-up, or even toggle. So if a pop-up is opened, you can close the pop-up, and so on. So this is a brief introduction of how you can work with pop-ups in Elementor version 2.4. I've decided and I've identified 20 use cases for pop-ups and 20 creative ways of using pop-ups. So that will be in the upcoming video. Stay tuned. And that's it for now, and hope you guys liked this video. If you did, make sure to give a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And if you need anything else, don't hesitate to ask. I'm ready to help you. Catch you in the next video. Peace.